be part of your syllabus, honored to be part of your itinerary. I love starting the walking tour standing still and hanging out just like this, as you guys naturally did. Because now we're like an automatic private Greek chorus, waltzing around our own unfolding Greek drama. You can pass on through. We made a lane. New York is all about lanes. We got a lane for you. So now, yeah, we're automatically our own private Greek chorus, waltzing around our own unfolding Greek drama. And just like any Greek chorus to its unfolding plot, we'll be participating, observing, commenting, but never really committing, if you know what I mean. Never taking it too seriously. The walking tours, after all, are designed to be intimate soirees that waltz across this vast alienation. And at all times, the priority of the walking tours are interaction and vacation. The kind of instantaneous vacation consciousness, so that even though we're in one of the more sullen neighborhoods of the city, Wall Street, we're having our own miniature vacation and soiree across these gorgeous, mostly 17th century sidewalks and streets. Yes, welcome to Wall Street. One of the really grandiose thoughts that must have popped out of the hypothalamus of Alexander Hamilton when he was sitting alone and feeling ambitious. I do like to think of New York City in general as a teacher, as a city teacher, spinning its parables and spreading its wisdom through its daily machinations and its history. The city teacher, kind of an anthropomorphization, a personification of all the wisdom that's in city limits today. The city teacher spreading its wisdom through its daily activities. For instance, traffic. I've always found traffic to be spiritual. Traffic is the city teacher's method of inflicting patience on a population addicted to impatience. In the hands of the city teacher, a traffic jam is but a tantric orgy, complete with orange and exhaust. I've learned a great deal from the city teacher over the years and in many different ways. For instance, when I used to work for Gray Line in my earlier tour guide days, it was my responsibility for a couple of summers to take people out to the Statue of Liberty, tourists from all over the world. Actually, inhabitants, 75 of them, 75 people from every habitable continent of the world, and myself, would go charging into the 90-minute line that you have to wait in to get onto the boat to get out to the Statue of Liberty. Once you endure the 90-minute line, get out to Liberty Island, nice view, of course the statue's there, but it's an all-day Gray Line tour. We got to be at the Empire State Building observation deck by 4:30. So just browse it, really. Browse it. We got to get back in line. There's another 45-minute line. Get back on the boat. Make it over to Ellis Island. Ellis Island, of course, very informative museum, great landmark. I personally love the Tom Brokaw narration, but it's an all. We got to schedule. We got to keep moving. There's another 45-minute line. We got to wait another 45-minute line. Get back on the boat. Make it to the mainland. I'll admit to you guys that I never once took a route out to the Statue of Liberty and found it liberating in any way. Usually at the end of that mission, I would be very, very far away from the notion of freedom and even further away from feeling free in any way. Squat, soul crunch, fatigue. In any case, finally, it occurred to me one sweaty day in line that the city teacher is a situationist, having silly putty fun with our unfolding reality. This epic novel we're all co-writing, The City. That this city teacher is situationist, kind of like, for example, Guy Debord, guy in Paris, 1960s. Debord made a film and invited a crowd to the movie theater to premiere his new film. The film he made was a hodgepodge of nonsense. A bunch of blackouts, pieces of commercials he found clipped together, stuff on the floor he glued together. Enjoy the lane. Yeah, Primrose Path Paradise, this lane. We made it ourselves. It's a New York tradition. In any case, yeah, like there we are, and we're in the sweaty line, and the board occurs to me, and he's like, it's just a hodgepodge of nonsense, blackouts, commercial stuff he found on the floor glued together, and eventually 10 minutes into the screening of this ridiculousness, somebody stood up and said, "Read the board, this is a hodgepodge of nonsense, can't even call it a film, it's not even a film, can't even call it a film." To which Guy Debord stood up in reply and said, "This is not a film. It's not a film. But this is a situation. We've got a situation on our hands here. It's supposed to be a film. I said it was. We're in a theater. You're mad now. Situation on our hands." He's a crafter of situations, a molder of molders. Sculpting a situation is the nonlinear connection of dots that happens naturally in our gregariousness. And so, eventually, I realized in that sweaty day in line that the city teacher likewise is a situationist. And I think what we might call the Statue of Liberty situation, any situationist would verify is certainly a situation. International humankind in a 90-minute sweaty line waiting to get onto a boat to visit the Statue of Liberty. Clearly, the city teacher has architected this situation to show that if you want to find liberty, when you're visiting the Statue of Liberty, you better find bliss in long lines. Because that's the only way you're ever going to get there. And I realized that the city teacher's very definition of freedom is finding bliss in long lines. Because if you can do that, you are free. You are doing it. People all the time, because I'm a tour guide, I'm coming to New York City, you got recommendations on things we can do. I always start the list with, find bliss in long lines. Because if you can do that, you're going to have a great trip. You can't miss. Likewise, this epic story, the financial district of New York City, is, I am quite sure, filled with parables galore and complicated punchlines being spun by this great city teacher and complicated comedian, New York City. Let's go take a look. We don't got to travel far. We're just going to visit on the other side of that beautiful wrought iron gate. As we do start walking the streets of the city, let's keep in mind, take a moment to appreciate the concrete beneath our feet, as the concrete beneath our feet, after all, is the skin of the city teacher, the flesh of the cosmopolitan guru, if you will. And as we're walking the streets of the city, let's keep in mind, simultaneously, we are, after all, massaging the city teacher. And when we're moving to our own beat and are enjoying our gait and our day, walking the streets of the flesh of the city teacher, we are at times eroticizing the city teacher, complete with goosebumps and potholes. Right this way. There, in the American Revolutionary War. Yeah. As we go, you'll find the city is a great vaudevillian partner, a great comedy partner, constantly with the punctuations. In any case, yeah, King's College, majorly important royalist institution that was right here when the American Revolutionary War began. King's College was directly created by the Duke of Canterbury. Was probably a list of the places the King of England was going to visit if he visited the colonies. It was Anglican and definitely a royalist, openly royalist institution that helped house British soldiers, and was quite pivotal in the British acquisition of Manhattan Island, which they did early on. New York City would be occupied by the British Army for 7 out of the 8 years of the Revolutionary War. Very much thanks to the work of King's College and the comforting of the British troops. Another fancy punchline in that direction, just by the way, as a footnote, is Delancey, who was a farmer in the Lower East Side, was another one of the major royalists, who was a big part of the British acquisition of the island. He was exiled after the Revolutionary War, sent back to England as a traitor. But because Delancey was a major farmer in the Lower East Side, the major street running horizontally across the north side of Lower East Side is called Delancey Street. And when the Lower East Side became the big immigrant district, which it did very early on, mid-19th century, the Lower East Side's burgeoning immigrant population, of course, these were the people who dreamt of becoming American and assimilating into society. And so this term, crossing Delancey, was born amongst them in their thirst to be American. The notion was that once you crossed Delancey, the northern border of the Lower East Side, the immigrant district, you had graduated into becoming a New Yorker, a citizen, whatever that meant to them at that time. It was a big deal. So how funny is it, though? These are the complicated punchlines of the complicated comedian New York City, that crossing Delancey is actually crossing the line of a traitor. In order, you cross the line of a traitor to graduate and become an American. Not only a complex, ironic punchline, but quite apt for current events. This is also a great view of Robert Fulton's grave, inventor of the steamboat. Peter Zenger is also buried inside here. He's another rock star in this cemetery. Zenger was the journalist when this was still a colony under British rule. Zenger was a journalist who wrote a comedy piece, wrote a parody piece, kind of his own version of an Onion article at the time, about the local governor, the British governor. He was arrested for it by the governor, and in his case, which was great, playing by his own rules. I mean, Zenger was the one who came up and defending himself in that case with the idea of freedom of the press, and that idiom would carry on to be a big part of the First Amendment. So Zenger considered to be, in his case, a major ingredient of the First Amendment, and he's buried here. William Bradford brought the first printing press, for better or for worse, to the New World. Buried here. This is also a great view of... oh, and by the way, I was going to round out that King's College story with, when the Revolutionary War ended, Act 3 of that play was rather awkward, you can imagine. Since King's College was so important to the British victory, then the British lost. Suddenly this was New York there amongst the revolutionaries. Dartmouth, Yale, Princeton, there was a bunch of other Ivy League schools that existed at that time. They were all pro-revolutionary. Only King's College was bet on the wrong horse, if you will. So they had to change their shtick pretty fast. New bread. They became Columbia University and moved uptown. To this day, when you visit the Columbia University quad, it's kind of funny just to notice that there are still large gold crowns that decorate the large wrought iron gate around the Columbia quad. Still paintings of the kings of England throughout the dining halls. It is still an openly royalist institution. Just saying. Asking for a friend. This is also a great view of the movement of the different tallest structures of the city. Joseph Campbell talks about how you can tell the priorities of a society by its tallest structures. So this is a fun view to notice. Like, he's always talking about how, in the Middle Ages, of course, the tallest structures of the time would be the church. And everything's based around the crucifix being the apex, the highest point. Careful there. And so the church is the highest point in the Middle Ages. Then it moves on to the palaces, and in the humanitarian Renaissance time, the residential palaces become the tallest structures. And then eventually, he says the towers of commerce, the office buildings, become the tallest structures. So really, you've got all the different moments of European history, the different altitudinous structures and priorities of societies right here in one view. Framed at the center of the picture, Alexander Hamilton's tomb. Really nice diorama. And this one view kind of backs up one of my ongoing theses, that was that New York City has... Hi! Hey!
Those were the MIA students.
Oh, nice.
I thought you guys abandoned us.
Yeah.
We're inside, actually.
Yeah.
We're literally walking.
We don't move too fast, but I had a feeling you'd find us and catch up to the phone. Well, welcome. Great. Yeah, so this one view kind of backs up one of my theses that it's just that New York City history is European history on cocaine. Middle Ages happened between a couple of Thursdays, the Renaissance over a weekend. Like, it's all right here. It all happened in a few years. Also, this is a profound view. So much going on in this view. profound view of the New World Trade Center. It's almost like it's having its own conversation with Alexander Hamilton's grave. By the way, another thing that's going on here, this just closed. It's been here for years. It'll be interesting to see what goes on in this storefront. But how true is it that, I mean, Alexander Hamilton, as a founding father, he was right on about a lot of things, about commerce and the monetary system and all that. And it's proved that Alexander Hamilton was right on about so many of his policies, please. He's buried right across the street from a shoe outlet. His grave's in a consistent day-long dialogue with a discount on shoes. So this is some sort of absolute proof of his career, like a vindication, a validation. So great view of the New World Trade Center, currently the tallest building of the city, aka also known as the Freedom Tower. The Freedom Tower is 1,776 feet tall, precisely, echoing the year 1776, a reference to the American Revolution. That one factoid alone, I do believe, legitimizes the question, making it therefore a legitimate question, to legitimately ask, is the new Freedom Tower an organic occasion springing forth from the unfolding saga of the city? Or is the New World Trade Center a billboard propped up by the sovereignty towards their enemies? Is the New World Trade Center somehow a bewildered landmark of Washington, D.C., lost in New York City limits? Of course, I remember when I would stand on this view on very distant and long past Wall Street tours. And by the way, I've done these tours long enough now that I've gotten some of those emails from people that say, by the way, I met my wife on your tour. So it's always good to keep your eyes open on the longer tours. Again, they are intimate soirees. Priority is interaction and vacation. In any case, so this used to be a view of the Twin Towers, and I remember those days. And of course, the World Trade Centers, I always had, I have great respect for them in their formlessness. When they were formed in actual buildings, they really seemed like an amazing art installation that was ongoing critique of the entire financial district that hosted the World Trade Center. Okay, so we got time to cross the street. Let's cross the street. Guys, watch this tour guide maneuver. See what it's all about. My people. All right, great. You guys training with it. So way up there, that's a little view of the Federal Reserve Bank, which looks like a Medici palace, literally. The Federal Reserve Bank is the largest depository of gold in the world, Fort Knox is second. There is a vault the size of a football field, 80 feet below the surface of the planet, protected by 90-ton steel doors. And over 6,000 tons of gold inside the vault underneath the Federal Reserve Bank. The building is also of prime time importance in Die Hard 2, if anybody ever saw that film. Not a great sequel. It's on its resume. This is if I had a title for this view, it would be When Tourism is Happening. A beautiful living art installation in time. One of my favorite things to do, especially around here, you get some really great pigeons. The pigeons, as usual, holding it together. The pigeons, of course, are passing through vaudeville troupe, doing their own parody dance of the New York commute. The way the pigeons will waddle. Oh, I've got a destination. No, not really. Waddle. Pigeons are, I don't want to say this too loud. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. openly mocking the New Yorkers. The way that the pigeon architects its entire day around the pursuit of crows. Don't let them know. Fuck them out. The pigeons are emissaries of the city teacher, ambassadors from that sagacity, representing in every neighborhood. The pigeons are actually dance instructors. They're amazing choreographers, instructing all of us on the city-dwelling choreography known as the Dance of Chaos. A choreography, a dance, the steps to which we're learning as we city dwell. The Dance with Chaos, to move with the actual breath pattern of the universe. You'll see a gaggle of pigeons nursing a pile of breadcrumbs along a curb in Midtown. Taxi cab comes careening into their present tense at 35 miles per hour. Pigeons nonchalantly jump out of the way. No problem. Couldn't call it unexpected. Definitely on the menu of possibilities when you're a pigeon nursing breadcrumbs along the curb in Midtown Manhattan. You can well expect a taxi cab comes careening into your present tense at 35 miles per hour. Then the taxi cab pulls away and the birds return to their happy hour. No problem. The pigeons are Fred Astaire's with chaos. The Ginger Rogers dancing backwards with the unexpected and the beauty of the unexpected as it comes in. And the pigeons, I'm pretty sure, with their version of commune, is exploring the Eastern mystical maxim that what we're anticipating is never actually showing up, while the unexpected is constantly coming in. So that's going on along my institutionalization tourism is happening. This is Wall Street and Broad, majorly important intersection in early American history. And although there's a lot of tourism around here too, and of course this is also the stock exchange, it's still funny how you visit a lot of other American cities and they make such a big hoopla about all their early American history landmarks. New York is so busy. This is like, man, so much happening, whatever. We got places to go. It's go time, baby. Glitz and glam, capital of the world. Who cares about Congress first convened here. In any case, I guess we should go over there and get more of a view of the primary statue, talk about it. Because a lot of good early American history did happen here. Whatever. Maybe somebody's cooking soup. I So on the corner of Wall Street and Broad, this would have been the first city hall of the city. Would have been a wood structure. Of course, you don't got too many wood structures down here no more, ever since the fires of 1825 and the fire of 1835. The fire of 1835 happened on a frigid December night because it was so cold, the water in the fire hoses froze, so the city was left vulnerable. And it's at that time they started introducing ingredients like terracotta and cast iron on the fronts of the buildings, trying to make things less flammable. So in any case, all the wood structures we're talking about from the past, that's why they're no longer around. But this would have been a giant wood building at the time. The first city hall, the second city hall of New York City on this corner, made of wood. And in 1789, New York City became the capital of the United States. So the wood structure on the corner of Wall Street and Broad would have been the first capital of the United States, Capitol building. Before that, the City Hall was used for that famous Peter Zenger court case I'd mentioned earlier. The birth of the First Amendment really happened in the first City Hall of New York City. The Stamp Act Congress met here in the pre-Revolutionary War days, inventing the term taxation without representation. Would have happened in the first City Hall on the corner of Wall Street and Broad, New York City. As awkward as the mantra taxation without representation is, it got everybody off the bench and running out there to kick some butt. And that's kind of this corner. The Northwest Ordinance would be ordained here, which was the Americans' first attempt at a central government in the New World. Another thing that took place in the first wood structure on this corner, Wall Street and Broad. Eventually, when it does become the capital of the United States in 1789, the current Congress of the United States would convene for the very first time on the corner of Wall Street and Broad. And it would count the ballots for the very first presidential election and the election of the first president of the United States, George Washington. And then on April 30th, 1789, the first oath of office of the first president of the United States took place on the second floor balcony of the wooden City Hall of New York City. And that is why, in this portrayal by John Quincy Ward, George Washington is slightly elevated, because he would have been standing up on the balcony. In the statue, he's being portrayed in that moment when he's taking the first oath of office. That's why his head is over an invisible Bible. Of course, when I tell you that that's George Washington taking the first oath of office as the first president of the United States, portrayed by John Quincy Ward, this immediately starts a floodgate deluge of personas, identity, gossip, nationalism, persona, and etc. All that goes along with the crazy story that is history. And I've always felt history, you know, that's 3 little syllables with an awful lot of responsibility. They must really have a headache at the end of the day. 3 little syllables, responsible for rendering comprehensible all that incomprehensibility. But in any case, historically speaking, there is George Washington taking his oath of office. But let's take a moment to turn off that floodgate. We'll take a moment to close our eyes, and we'll take a deep breath. And when we reopen our eyes, we'll look at the George Washington statue, not as George Washington, but as a man, as a soul, who's dressed up in late 18th century regalia. Okay, let's try it out. We'll close our eyes, take a deep breath. And reopen our eyes, and we're viewing a mortal man dressed up in late 18th century regalia. He has very good posture. He is almost smiling, not quite smiling, I would say. And he appears to be holding out his hand. He appears to be waiting for someone to come and hold his hand. And he stands there all day, waiting for somebody to hold his hand as millions rush right past him. It's suddenly become a cruel art installation, deep discussion of early American history. Anyway, we should probably move on. We covered that. Let's move on to one of the major terrorist attacks of the city's history over here. These tents along the facade of the J.P. Morgan History Building.
Wait, Mr. Rivera, you should zoom in on the camel toe. He's but a man with camel toe.
Part of the art installation. Just quickly, like this is one of those cool details that it's so easy to walk by. Oh, there's a... Yeah, these dents are actually quite sad, but it's one of those cool details that's easy to walk past all the time. These dents are left behind from an anarchist explosion that took place here September 20th, September 16th, 1920. And it was probably, some believe in an attempt to assassinate J.P. Morgan Jr. It was a bunch of dynamite piled up into a horse carriage that was parked along the sidewalk here. And as a quiet memorial, unlabeled, pretty subtle, they've left behind literal dents from that explosion from that day in the facade. So the dents are eerie and really speak for themselves. I can say that they never did identify exactly who detonated the dynamite. There were different anarchist groups always ready to take responsibility at that time. And the explosion here on Wall Street is given credit for being the incendiary spark that helped create the Red Scare, which was a major period of paranoia, an early precursor to McCarthyism, same idea, scare over the different anarchist and Bolshevik groups running around town. And right around the corner, really the rock star of the intersection these days, the New York Stock Exchange. Let's go visit with that one. We got a front row seat.
Oh, the
The great vaudevillians at work. Guys. Look at how committed they are. Totally committed to crime. This is where the training comes in. I mean, look at the commitment, the focus. That's vaudeville. Oh, great view of the soccer stage. The sad-looking buttonwood tree in front of the soccer stage. The great buttonwood tree is a symbol. And the first transaction on Wall Street happened under a buttonwood tree. The mythological gesture that gave birth to New York City was nothing as romantic as a lady of the lake emanating from the waters of Excalibur. Nor was it as romantic or epic as a mythological gesture as two brothers named Romulus and Remus in Seven Hills. The mythological gesture that gave birth to New York City was a deal. Transaction. A purchase, kind of. Maybe a barter. Hard to say. Under the table deal. The first one in a long infinity of under the table deals. Yeah, a transaction. That's all New York gets. No fancy swords, no stories of brothers or hills. Just a deal between Peter Minuit, a representative of the Dutch West India Company, the local Native American tribes. From the city teacher's point of view, you understand that we're all tiles in a vast, moving, gregarious mosaic, crafting moments together. Those moments are living sculptures in time, and the universe is the final retrospective of our crafted moment. In cruising, the city teacher is understanding us all to be life artists, if you will, crafting these moments. And so from the city teacher's point of view, you could probably understand the transaction is the most mediocre form of human intercourse. There's probably more sharing and murder than a transaction in terms of human gesture. When we are purchasing something with $1, we are necessarily crafting a moment together. We're entering the periphery of each other's personal space. And the transaction is a gesture I've often felt, I've theorized, and again, this is more of a touristic gut feeling. I don't got a lot of scientific data. Not out of the sense that the primary ingredients in New York, and this is a perfect soundtrack to this, is fear and need. Of course, our fear of each other and our need of each other is constantly going on at the same time throughout a city day. So with the transaction, we're entering each other's peripheral personal space, but not because we're enjoying it, for God's sakes. It's not some nightclub I'm hanging out in. We're here for constructive, profitable, societal reasons. And we are, even though we're entering each other's personal space, we've got ourselves at an arm's distance, tactical and convenient, and we've moved the economy along. And whatever the economy is, it seems to me it's something that helps keep us busy so nobody looks into each other's eyes for too long. Of course, it's more of a touristic gut feeling I've got. I don't got scientific data, but every city dweller of any city I ever met needs a hug, and a big one. That's got nothing to do with this, though. Slandering another president, fear and need. We're this giant nightclub crammed in together, ignoring each other. That's happening. That is happening. So in any case, the transaction is very important as a mediocre form of human intercourse. And so, of course, from the city teacher's point of view, we have crafted a moment, but a gigantically mediocre one. We've crafted this moment as anonymously and timidly as possible. In a transaction, a meek attempt at intimacy. Which brings us to the history of Wall Street. The Wall Street begins as a wall built by the Dutch, and the Dutch New Amsterdam was so small, it was the southern tip of the island, and the Wall Street was the northern breach, was the fortress wall facing north. Different debates as to why the wall was built in the north, facing the north. Probably because the British were up there in Massachusetts, and the Dutch and the British at that point were wrestling all over the world. Best. Look at the nonchalant style. No problem. You guys are great. Inspired. So yeah, the wall was a fortress made of wood, facing the north to keep the British out. Of course, the British, being British, then showed up from the south with the Navy. I mean, New Amsterdam was mostly laborers and Dutch families. They weren't ready to duel with the British Navy. It was a bloodless surrender. And the British arrived in 1664. They used the wood from the wall for firewood. Next thing you know, you got Wall Street. So Wall Street still has the disposition of a fortress. No longer a fortress against the British, more of a metaphorical fortress against intimacy. And what is intimacy? But eventually, I think when somebody turns to you and they say, "You hurt my feelings," and you turn to them and you say, "I know." That simple certainly suited it. I mean, in any case, yeah, a fortress built against our intimacy. And so eventually, this beautiful situation created by the great situationist New York City, we have the disheveled buttonwood tree. Less a tree and more a gesture implying tree. A tree per se, dwarfed, and the buttonwood tree dwarfed by the facade of the stock exchange. Our true nature being dwarfed by our fictions. It's a beautiful word. So yeah, let's stroll this way. Awesome. We have a great view of an intersection here. We have a front row seat to an awesome and average intersection of the city. Intersection in name, connotation, and in its role in society is all about interconnection. There are gigantic human agreements going on here. Red means stop, there's a time to walk, there's a time not to walk. According to certain gurus of Eastern mysticism, prophets of Gaia, and quantum physicists, human evolution is something that's no longer moving outward, it's a process that's moving inward. In other words, we're probably not going to develop fins anytime soon. But what is evolving in us is the inward motion of our self-knowledge, becoming more knowledgeable, our self-awareness, becoming more aware, us getting better at living in general and living together, and that feeling of empathy, in case you think I'm not taking you seriously, by the way, I'm taking you intravenously. That according to these certain prophets of Gaia, gurus of Eastern mysticism, and quantum physicists, the same gigantic, mute human agreements that are currently making this intersection operable are the same gigantic, mute human agreements that will one day sweep us to the next level of our human evolution as group conscious telepathic beings. And as much as what we're about to do right now, and I will grant you in every concrete sense of the term, what we're about to do right now is called crossing the street. That's all we're doing here, and I totally agree with that. We're just crossing the street. I'm just saying, simultaneously, while we happen to be crossing the street, we just happen to be making a gigantic leap for human evolution. And I just wanted to say, well done, and I like your style of pedestrianism. Go on. Into the river. Yeah, great to share with y'all. God, it's so hardcore. You guys have class on Saturdays.
You can go.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we got a lane for you. We got lanes. Another comprehensible reason why Broadway is the great revolutionary and nonconformist that it is because of a man named Henry Brevoort. Brevoort owned an apple orchard right at the approximate spot where 10th Street and Broadway is today. And you'll notice when Broadway gets to 10th Street, it enters the intersection as a linear straight boulevard, and it exits that intersection on a crooked trajectory heading northwest. Well, when Broadway was originally being paved through, it was about to encroach on one corner of Henry Brevoort's apple orchard. Brevoort went to the city fathers and asked if Broadway could circumnavigate a few of his trees of knowledge. And so Broadway was paved around Henry Brevoort's apple orchard. And to this day, at 10th Street, Broadway makes its pivot that will head it off into its nonconformist trajectory when it becomes the abstract, expressionistic painterly stroke, decorating the mundane reality of the grid plan. The grid plan, a parental guidance placed upon a growing city child, growing city teacher. The grid plan, what the real estate speculators were doing to the city, is what their parents had done to them. And so Broadway, charging into its painterly, abstract, expressionistic, unique reaction to the grid plan, Broadway is on the specific trajectory it is on because it defended a man and his private delusional vision of Eden and stood up for a few apple trees. And it is fun to remember that there was a time in this city when the a few trees of knowledge were more important than the straightness of a road. And also, when we're walking up and down Broadway, it's quite imaginative of the boulevard, I must say, that on the trajectory it's on, we're walking that specific trajectory, the way Broadway and all of us standing up for Henry Brevoort and his private delusional vision of Eden. And at the cornerstone of all original thought is having one's own private vaulted vision of paradise. And so that's another comprehensible reason why Broadway is a great revolutionary. We still enjoy Broadway. This is a little bit tough place to cross. I'm going to do my tour guide maneuver. Let's go. We made it. Great. Here's the ball move. Connoisseur that honk. As different honks of the city come tumbling into because take a moment to connoisseur and taste the different honks. That last one, for instance, based on their voluminousness, intensity, context, and duration, connoisseur and taste the different honks as they come in. That last big one up there, did you hear that kind of staccato chord right in the middle of that one? That's misguided animosity. That's the sound of misguided animosity. A lot of lingering honks, of course, are despairing or lethargic. So many honks, it goes without saying, are horny. Here we are at the beginning of Broadway and Bowling Green, the oldest park of Manhattan. Where the fountain is today stood the statue of King George III, which the New York revolutionaries, pumped up with rage after hearing the initial reading of the Declaration of Independence in New York Oxygen on July 9, 1776, charged the park, tore down the statue, and beheaded the statue of King George, an eerie precursor of future, near-future regicides in world history. And so even the very beginning of Broadway, imbued with revolutionary fervor, the great revolutionary that it is. And so, in conclusion, Broadway is here for us to walk on and to rebel with. Thank you.